All right, I'm super excited. Everybody's here tonight. Again, I'm Dr. Cynthia West, and I'm the director of the Leatherby Center for Entrepreneurship and Business Ethics. And we are proudly supported by Cal OSBA, Office of the Small Business Advocate. And I'm going to have a representative talk about that in just a moment. However, let me just ask the audience really quickly, how many people know what year Chapman was founded? Anybody know? Raise your hand. No idea. Okay, guess. Close. Okay, back. Nope. Okay. 1861. And the reason I tell you, I'm going to tell you a quick story. As we all know, humans love stories. So tonight we're going to talk about entertainment and also the intersection of storytelling. But humans love stories, and in fact, it's been proven that humans actually learn better when they hear things in the form of stories. So that makes tonight's topic really special. The story I'm going to tell you is a little bit about Chapman's founding. And in 1861, what was happening in this country? Anybody remember? Not quite. Just before the Civil War broke out. And the founders of our college at that time were a religious group that believed that women should be educated, people of all backgrounds, regardless of ethnicity, should be educated, and everybody of any religion should be educated. And to make this point very poignant and lasting, they decided to found Chapman University on the very day, month, year, and even the hour of Abraham Lincoln's inauguration. And that was, I believe, a breadcrumb for people like me to uncover and say that the foundation, the origin story of this university is really founded in the idea that everybody should have equal access to education. So you can imagine this was 60 years before women even had the right to vote. So this crazy idea that women should be educated and that people should be supported regardless of where they came from. You know, we've always been a county of a lot of immigrants. So I'm just super proud to be representing Chapman and everything it represents here tonight. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Stephanie Garcia of Cal OSBA.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Garcia. I'm the local engagement specialist for the California Office of Small Business Advocate. We're a unit under the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. We support the 4.1 small business community here in the state of California by providing you all with resources and connecting you with centers like the one we're in today, where you could take advantage of different training, workshops, and also grants that may become available. So we're a proud founder of the Leatherby Center of Entrepreneurship and Business Ethics, one of our 13 innovation hubs or iHubs here that we have in California. Accelerate California is about inclusion, opportunity, specifically the opportunity to compete in a high growth, high reward industries that make up our innovation economy here in California. Accelerate California seeks to diversify our innovation economy by these three components: expanding the pool of founders, creating innovation clusters in inland and northern regions, foster the innovation mindset in a wide range of industries from healthcare to ranching to ag tech and more. We're doing this by fueling the innovative ecosystem with Accelerate grants up to 100K. So if you're one of those entrepreneurs, stick by. Again, we're very proud to call the Leatherby Center of Entrepreneurship and Business Ethics one of our partners. We are very excited to see all the cool and innovative businesses that come out of our OCI hub. So stay connected with the center and maybe you'll be one of the grantees coming up soon this year. Thank you.
All right, panel, come on down. I'd like to introduce you to your moderator for this evening, Matt Meredith of Sundock Studios, while the panel gets on stage.
Thank you. All right, everyone take their seats and we'll get started with some introductions. obviously sponsored by Liquid Death. Okay. As you all know, my name is Matthew Meredith, like she just introduced, and I'm one of the co-founders of Sundoc Studios, a documentary production company. And we'll get started. Why don't we just go down the line, starting with Caleb?
Thank you guys for coming out here. My name's Caleb. I'm the co-founder of Curious Refuge. We're the world's first online home for AI storytellers. We teach people what is happening in the world of filmmaking and artificial intelligence. We have students in over 126 countries, and we just really believe that everybody has a story to tell, and we want to show them how to navigate the incredible and ever-changing landscape that is artificial intelligence.
Give it up for Caleb real quick.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leah DeLeon. I graduated from Chapman in 2019. I was a news and documentary graduate. Matthew's actually my husband, so we work together. So our company, Sundoc Studios, we do original documentaries, and we also partner with purpose-driven companies to create documentaries for nonprofits, corporations. Basically, we're all about humanizing their marketing.
Give it up for Leah.
Hi, my name is Richard White, and I'm the founder of Curtis Stitch Incorporated, where I create a production company. I'm a filmmaker and do a lot of work with brands, and the focus is purpose-driven storytelling. Purpose-driven storytelling, if you don't know, is looking out for people and planet or retail stories. And you can find it on PBS right now. It's called Both of You this summer. Great to be here. Thanks for coming. Give it.
Hi, my name is Zara Abraham. I'm also a Chapman grad, class of 2014. I was an animation major. And I also work with my husband, who is not here. He and some of our friends from Chapman started a game studio right in this very building in 2015 called Well Told Entertainment. We are a game studio that kind of believes in all good stories well told, essentially. We've been making games in virtual reality, augmented reality, basically a lot of different mediums for a long time. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here. Thank you all for coming.
Michael Martinez, I'm with Callow SBA. You heard about Callow SBA earlier. Formerly, I was with Warner Brothers in their advanced narratives division, working with emerging technologies and exploring all the types of ways that we could take advantage of the fact that streaming really means you're watching stuff on a computer. So what can we do with that? How can we make that a better experience than what we've had for the last 100 years?
Give it up for Michael. All right. So thank you, everybody, for coming. We're excited to chat and hopefully provide some really great value. We're going to start with something a little bit fun, a little bit quick. And everyone, we're going to go down the line. No explanation. Just tell us about what is your absolute favorite movie. Starting with Michael, we'll come this way.
I thought it said favorite story. So I'm going to go with the first 10 minutes of Up.
I respect that.
Best screenwriter.
I respect that. Zara?
No explanation, right?
No explanation.
Apocalypse Now.
Supersize Me.
Supersize Me. That's a good one.
Today I'll go with Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Episode 4.
I'll say Whiplash. Just really enjoy it.
Great film. I heard it's in theaters again. Yeah, so you can go see it. Okay, so we're gonna go down the line here. We'll come back starting with Caleb. So what are the top 3 innovations that are changing your field? So we have the AI storytelling workshop, right? So how is the 3 innovations kind of changing what you're doing?
I mean, there's so many innovations every single week with what we're doing. I would say that for storytelling as a whole, one of the biggest innovations that kind of flies under the radar is the amount of information that AI systems are able to interpret. For example, Google has a model that can watch up to 45 minutes of video and then tell very specific information and give feedback about what it just watched. And that has huge implications because as the context windows get larger, AI will be able to watch entire films. It will be able to analyze the shots, how stories and information is conveyed, and then it will be able to inject its own creativity into the process. And that's going to be very huge. So I'll just say the one for now, but there's obviously so many others.
For sure. Why don't everyone just give your number one thing that's impacting your industry then?
I'll go with the idea of remote production. And I really saw the power of this when the pandemic hit, when nobody could travel and you still needed to tell stories around the world. So basically, you can conduct interviews across the world, no matter what. I've conducted interviews in Canada, I've conducted interviews in Indonesia, and basically cross collaboration globally, I think is here to stay. And there's lots of different tools that are going to be popping up so that it makes collaboration across countries very easy.
Can you give some quick context of what
Sure.
that means? How are you interviewing somebody in Indonesia?
Sure. Okay. So basically I find talent, local talent. So I'm not flying out there. So based on my network, I'll either look at a Facebook group or I have some friends there. I'll ask them on WhatsApp and basically say, hey, I'm looking for, a cinematographer. Once I get in contact with them, usually they speak English. So we hop on a Google Meet. We just make sure that the time zones are good. And then we collaborate on the creative vision. I send the interview questions. And then I've done it a couple of different ways where you can actually plug in the camera into, an HDMI and have it live streamed where you can see the feed of the interview while you're speaking. And I've also done it kind of DIY, if you will, where it's like a laptop sitting on a little Google Meet and it's not the most professional, but it still gets the job done and you can still listen in real time and take notes about what they're saying.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Remote production.
I say that I just did my first one of those and it was conducting an interview in China and it was being translated over the internet as the interview was being. So that's really cool. For me, it's a tie between camera technology and just so fast. It's moving so fast. So many more tools for us. Also, the ability to deliver large files fast and also our projects, doing master projects and being able to upload them now is just massive because it used to be a major ordeal to get a master to New York for a premiere or a broadcast launch. So,
What's the way that you're sharing footage digitally?
Aspera and Hightail.
Okay. Check those
There's
out.
certain things like if you're going like sending things to China, they can't access certain things there. So Aspera's work for that. It also seems to handle a lot like at once, but a Hightail mostly like having a professional Hightail account. We can put everything up there and we could upload big master files there, like for cinema DSP files and things.
Are you familiar with LucidLink?
No.
Okay. You should look into that. I'm
I will
curious to
do.
talk about this after with you.
Okay.
Zara, what about you? Number one challenge impacting the video game industry?
Challenge or innovation, because I was going to say the thing that is top of mind right now, which is try to call it more than like multimedia, multiplayer. Like I hesitate to say the metaverse, but like close. Because right now video games is going into this space where essentially the most popular games are the ones where there's like sprawling worlds where you can jump in using any medium. You can be in the same space like a Fortnite or Roblox. You can be in the same space with somebody who is in a virtual reality headset, with somebody who's on their phone, with somebody who's on their PC and having an experience together. And I had a very unique experience recently that why it's top of mind. We're working on a project with a company that makes a multiplayer game and we're doing in-game production. So we go in as characters, we get dressed up and we act out scenes and we have somebody who's shooting, we have kind of camera equipment. It's all in virtual reality. We're all in there together. And that's just for kind of a trailer project we're doing. And it's just all in a day's work for the kids who are helping us who play the game. So
Yeah, the world gets smaller and smaller. Michael.
So what's the question?
The question is, what's the number one innovation that's impacting or changing your field?
I'm not gonna, I can't say the number one, but I'll say two that haven't been mentioned that I think are important. One is volumetric capture. So you
Can I have you actually,
Matrix?
maybe you just grab the microphone
Yeah.
and you can hold it?
Remember the Matrix, they did that trick where they had cameras going around the actor. Volumetric capture is cameras almost in a 360 around whatever the object may be. So it could be an actor, it could be like the Batmobile, let's say. So it actually takes more of a scan than like filming. And then you could take that, let's say you take the Batmobile and then you could put it in a game and it's the actual Batmobile. You could do like back in a couple of years ago, it was an NFT or whatever it was, and it's the actual thing or it's the actual actor. And then you could do cool things like what you just talked about with this scan of a character.
It makes me think of Gran Turismo, if anybody saw the movie, maybe?
Yeah.
It was a video game, very popular video game that I played as a kid, and they do that exact, they were showing it in the movie, how they're scanning the cars very specifically, and it looks so real in the video game.
Yeah, and then the other thing is virtual stages, like virtual sound stages, which is not, doesn't mean virtual reality. It means that you're surrounded by LED screens that can project the background. So instead of having like set paintings like we used to have, you actually have video screens. So instead of actors being in green or acting against tennis balls, you can actually see King Kong or whoever it is that you're acting against, or this vista, and put yourself there. So that's another thing.
Is that getting more affordable or is it wicked expensive?
It's
2026.
Say that again.
Quick plug, Dodge is building a virtual soundstage stage, opens in 2026, so, yeah.
So it will
No
get more
one can say
affordable.
that, I just know it.
currently it's not. So you answered, I mean, you asked the right question. Currently it's not, but those prices will come down. And we're using gaming engines, by the way, to power all of this. And that's another huge innovation that I think should be talked about.
Yeah, Caleb, you got something?
I built one in my basement recently. It's like not a great one, but using like a low throw projector and some like LED lights, and it's good enough for YouTube.
There you go. That'll get the job done. Okay, next question. How do you see the role of traditional filmmaking evolving in the age of AI and our digital sphere? And whoever wants to volunteer first can jump on this one.
Can I say, like, AI, it's hype by now. Like, if you've worked with it, actual LLMs, like, they can't do that much. Like, it's a cool party trick. It's like a magic trick. It looks like it's doing something, but in reality, it's not. So like these are tools that we can use. And I think that's the thing. If you don't know it, I would say there's a lot of FOMO and like people, if you're learning it because you're afraid, I would say don't worry about it that much. It's not going to change as much as we think. And coming from the studio side, I can tell you that a lot of the people that run the studios don't understand it at all either. Because when we would pitch our projects to them and we're within the studio, they were like, sounds cool and really scary. You know, they were always the ones that were the most doubtful about it. So I don't see it being this negative disruptive force at this time.
For sure. And maybe it doesn't have to be negative. I'd like to actually hop over to Caleb then to maybe come from the other perspective here because you're teaching this. So how do you see the role of traditional filmmaking kind of evolving with AI?
I think that's what is happening is iteration is faster than ever before. And at least from my end, I feel like the stories that I tell that are better are the ones that have had the ability to go through more takes, more reps, more editing sessions. And I think AI is increasing the velocity in which you can get to those actual creative decisions about, is this shot the right one or is this the right one? Is that line the right one for the story I'm trying to tell, or is it this one? And so I think that it's a tool in the hands of someone who is incredibly creative and has fantastic storytelling sense. And so it multiplies the creativity that's there. And, you know, for folks who have traditional background in storytelling, it just elevates the potential of what they're able to create.
Right. It's just another useful tool.
I have some more context. Yeah, I work as a writer on a team teaching language models to write better and to write more meaningful stuff because they can't quite do it. You see, when you start working with the computers, you see where they lack in ability to create something unique and special and have certain insights and feelings that humans can't. So there's so much that you learn by putting stuff into a computer and seeing what it can get back. And then you're teaching it to do different things. Now that's where I think that the AI can go wrong. And if we're giving it too much responsibility, we're not checking it as humans, that's where it can go wrong. But as a writing tool, for example, I use it, I put my work into it to get feedback, to your point. So I think it's really great in that sense, and also to synthesize information. So I can take summaries of information and get the bullet points without having to do it myself. But I think that the upside of that, like if you're using it as a tool and you are, when as a writer, I seek feedback. I'm not actually looking for it to create for me because I know it's not going to be as good as me, but am looking for great feedback and I'm asking it why. Why do you like this better than that? And so to your point about actually helping you choose shots and getting to a decision, because as a director, it's a collaborative process. So you're filtering every information and each iteration, to your point, things get better. And it's all about finding the best idea. And I think that that's what AI can help you do. But I'm also really excited and also I'm wondering about what's going to happen as we start feeding visuals into the machines, and also we start like leaning on it to create scenes for us. So you start seeing art on Instagram that's like fantastic, but the minute you realize that it's actually a creation of AI, it's like, okay, wait a second, like let's take a step back and this through for a minute.
It makes you question, is this real?
Yeah.
Like, I think we were on a phone call today and someone's headshot, we complimented the headshot and he's like, oh, it was AI.
It looks really believable.
Yeah, it looked really good. Leah, what do you got?
I was gonna say, thinking about traditional documentary filmmaking, it's a very long process. First, you have to get to know your character, you have to spend time with them, you maybe film hours and hours of interviews or lots of footage. And something that I think will happen is that we'll see, and is happening now, it's the release of documentaries is rapid. Like, for example, if anyone watched the Netflix series Sprint, that was all about the top runners of the world, and it dropped like right after the Olympics. And it almost feels like it's happening right before you. Like, it's just such a quicker turnaround, I guess is what I'm getting to, that you can feed AI transcripts and summarize your points. You can, I mean, even while I was at Chapman, I volunteered as an intern my freshman year, manually transcribing stuff for my professor. Like, I remember doing that, and that's a lot of time. There's lots of hours and hours of footage. And now you're able to transcribe things live. So I think that it will definitely speed up the process and honestly make it a lot more accessible for people that might not have the budget to hire, you know, an assistant or a traditional person that usually would have, you know, that many hours of work to do. So I think it's going to allow smaller documentary teams to work smarter and not harder.
Yeah, it definitely helps us. Even just when Premiere came out with the automatic
Yeah.
transcription, I was like, thank you, because
Thank you.
that saves so much time. It's unbelievable. Like 5 minutes, you're done. But Zara, do you got anything or?
I was just gonna say there's nothing traditional about video games. We're still a fairly young industry. And even if you think of it as an offshoot from animation, animation is such a technologically forward industry as well, that even traditional animation is only about 50 years old. Like, so I would say that we tend to be open to taking in new technologies and seeing what happens. I will say that just like, I mean, if we're talking a little bit about business, the funding aspect of video games has always kind of been like, it's very hard to know what will sell well or anything like that. And so you have to go pitch your game to these like funding agents, and then they'll decide whether they want to put money into it. And I think as AI becomes more prevalent, especially when it comes to what you're talking about, with the creative side of things, where you can come up with ideas and iterate quicker, I think it's going to, I think a lot of people's fear is that we're going to just flood the market with trash. But I think it's potentially the opposite will happen, and the standard will become so much higher, because if anyone can cook, then like not, they're going to have to be really picky about who gets the money.
That's a really good Ratatouille quote. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next question. And this one is targeted towards Caleb. And I'd like you to give a little bit of context, actually, if you could. So what do you think about Gen AI? So generative AI using copyrighted material like unauthorized use of the New York Times or Sarah Silverman's comedy. Do you think that AI stories should be copyrightable?
That's an easy question. Just kidding. So there's a lot of thoughts around this. The way that we encourage people at Curious Refuge is to take the existing filmmaking pipeline and look at AI through the same lens. So if we want to make a film right now, we would typically go to a tool like Shot Deck, which has screenshots from basically every movie ever made, and you would put together ideas of what you want your film to look like. And then you would put together a rip reel, which is a collection from films and trailers that embody the film that you're looking for. So in the development phase, We're using other people's work and combining things together to create a beautiful new vision for a new story. And I think that generative AI is great for that, like getting to that process. And then once you get into the production process, there's now a hard wall. And there are other generative tools that you can use to assist with the process, whether it is with sifting through, materials for your documentary. If it's in an animation world, maybe you train a custom model that can be used as a renderer to give you, a new style, like what they did for the Spider-Verse. So I think that putting each of the tools in their place is the secret sauce there. And so the challenge will be if someone tries to go from, LLM, ChatGPT, generate all their images, generate their video, and then they try to like monetize that on the back end, and there's no distinction in which they injected their own creativity into the process outside of just selecting the iterations. That will be the tricky thing, and lawyers are still trying to figure that out. But that's how we're viewing it.
So in short, it's complicated.
Yes.
Does anybody have any piggybacks on that?
Well, I was really curious about how it's working with music and how you've had artists redo tracks
We'll
from
miss you guys.
established artists like Oasis, for example, and like an indie artist will do like an Oasis album and do it so well that Oasis will say, oh, that's great, I love it, but how does that play into the whole rights question? So I think that, like, to your point, we don't know, like, it's so hard to put your finger on it. Like with entertainment law, there's always a question, like what can we use as documentary filmmakers? Like, what can we use? What are we allowed to use in public domain? What's actually, like, do we have fair usage for? So there are clear rules, pretty clear, but it's still not clear, like, what we can and can't use. There's certain things, guidelines we can do to be like, feel pretty good that we're not going to get sued. And we get, insurance and things like that for that reason. But the minute you start like looking at AI and how like putting these things in a blender and they're spitting them out, and but the source material is original. I remember that case with Shepard Fairey and the Obama image, and he got sued, but ultimately it's his own creation, but it was derived from a photo, and it was a big lawsuit.
I've heard even musicians can get in trouble for using their own music that's copyrighted in the wrong context.
Yeah, like Bittersweet Symphony from The Verve is a really good example. And there's a sample from the Rolling Stones in that song. And they went to the Rolling Stones to say, hey, we're using this sample, and they didn't allow them to monetize it. But they probably should have, I think.
I sense some big lawsuits on the horizon.
Yeah.
That's usually how our best laws get created. Does anyone else have a piggyback before we move on?
Just, well, we were doing a project, and the director really wanted like a British sounding voice for the voiceover. And so we hired a voiceover artist from London. She did the thing, but we also made a voice, what's it called? Voice font of her voice. With her permission, she got paid for it. During the voiceover recording, she said something wrong. And instead of her having to get up, get back in the booth, do it again in another day, and she probably, I don't know how the deal worked out. She might not have even gotten paid to do it because it was her mistake. We just typed the number into the machine. Her voice came out. You couldn't tell the difference. So like that's the practical application. But the important point is the artist still got paid because we need money. The AI doesn't need money, and neither do the companies that make it.
Yeah, this is also kind of going into our next question, which is like, what ethical concerns arise when we're creating AI with actors, different likeness, right? In terms of it being like ethical compensation and consent. Did you have something, Leah?
Yeah, I think the best example in documentary that I can think of is a documentary called Roadrunner. If anyone watched it, it's about Anthony Bourdain. Anyone watch it? Yeah.
Beautiful film.
So I watched it, I think, on the plane. It was a beautiful film. And in the film itself, it does not disclose at all that his voice was AI because he passed. So how can we do that? And I think that that's a very ethical, tricky type of slippery slope to not tell your audience that. And maybe, I don't know, they're coming out with all these buttons now and all the social platforms like made with AI or rewritten with AI or something. And maybe, I don't know. I feel like in that scenario, it definitely should have been either at the beginning or even at the end, just like, Anthony Bourdain passed. Like whatever, explain why and how you got permission. Because I feel like that just gave me a little bit of an ick. I don't know how, I haven't looked into it, how it's been received so far recently, but I think that's a very tricky situation.
Perhaps you have to consult with his estate or something on that. What do you got, Caleb?
Yeah, and just to add to that, so we have an AI documentary course that we released at the beginning of September, and one of the guidance, kind of the areas in which we push people is if you're trying to recreate something that is emulating real life, you need to tell the audience. So what if you're doing a film about the history of Chapman around the Civil War, and you're trying to create images that are in black and white, look like they're in that era, you need to tell people because they don't know what is real or not real. But that's a big difference between doing recreations and current documentaries, because the audience is watching, they're not assuming that that pirate footage you have there is actually, real footage from that time. So I think to your point, like this is just something new, and we need to be able to tell audiences whether it's a little logo in the bottom corner or some sort of disclaimer. Muddling of the historical record that is unhelpful.
If you saw this movie, this documentary, let me shade you. If you said this documentary had AI at the beginning of a movie, would that like perturb you? Or would that be like, oh, I accept that? Like, does that seem weird to you guys?
There was one, and I forgot who the subject was. It might have been, no, it was, oh my God. Oh my God. Not Top Gun, other guy. Maverick, not Maverick, other guy.
Goose.
Iceman. Val Kilmer.
Yes.
Lost his voice because of his illness. And they recreated his voice for the documentary, and that was like part of the marketing for it, was that.
But he was alive and gave
But he
his
was
blessing.
alive and he gave his blessing. And then I think when they did Tupac's hologram, his estate did give their blessing because, they gotta eat too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Any other tidbits?
Something that's like semi-related to your previous question, but also this question, thinking about the ethical side of things, one of our major concerns is art. And where does AI learn to do art, but from lots and lots and lots of art that people create, and they've taken it without any payment or anything like that. And there's kind of a cautionary tale that's happening in real time right now. I've been racking my brain to remember the name of this game. You might know it. There's a game that looks a lot like Pokemon, but it's Pokemon with guns. Pal World. Thank you. There's a Pokemon with guns game called Pal World with all these creatures that look just like Pokemon, except they don't. And Nintendo is a highly litigious organization, and they'd said nothing when Pal World came out. And then they let Pal World make a lot of money, and now they're going after them. And that is, I think, a sign of the times, because they've clearly remixed Pokemon designs, potentially using AI. It seems like unlikely they could have come up with that many without the help of it. And Nintendo is going after them for a lot of money. And so
As it should, I think.
I mean, as they should is the question, right? Like when we're talking about who owns things or the ethics of it, like you could think you might get away with it, but you really don't know because we're in Wild West territory.
It's a big experiment right now.
And did they actually use Pokemon to create it?
We haven't yet found out. We don't know.
Okay.
They haven't said.
That'll be the loss.
They don't even know. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So we're going to move away from AI just for a hot second. So a little personal here. How do you get to the heart of a story, right? So many documentaries are heartfelt, a lot of narrative films also, but how do you get to the heart of a story and make sure that it's conveyed in the film?
The story is everything. So I really don't care about the visuals until the story is right. So it takes a lot of thinking, development, research. And I think that really honing your story to the least number of sentences possible, and what's the beginning, middle, and end? Where's the tension? What are the stakes? But it's all story for me. And I think that a lot of people, especially in this day and age, get really excited about visuals. And, you can have the best visual in the world, no story, and it doesn't mean anything. So you learn that really quickly when you go out and shoot a really great visual and it just ends up being, there's nothing there. And I think that I always tell students, really make sure every creative decision you're making, whether it's a shot or it's a piece of animation or whatever you're doing, even color correction, make sure that every decision you're making is off the story. And it starts with a really powerful story. And I think that I've seen the stories that I've worked on that last the longest, that have shelf life, are the ones that have the better stories.
Amazing.
And also untold stories, right? And never been told before stories or pieces of untold histories, but universal human truths.
Yeah. Also, in case you guys have any questions, we will be doing a Q&A at the end. So write down any juicy questions you got.
What was the question again?
Question was, how do you get to the heart of a story and then make sure that it's conveyed in the film?
Okay, so to get to the heart of a story, I believe you have to be very quiet. I think you have to listen. I think you have to get really quiet with yourself, and at least I'm viewing this in the realm of documentary filmmaking. I think it's a very personal journey that the filmmaker also goes on. And so I think even before thinking about the story that you're telling, you almost have to think about your own story. And you have to think, why do I care? Because if you don't care, how can you convince anyone else to care? And if you really make a film that you care about, that you got quiet and you thought about why does the world actually need to hear this story, then chances are there's a good audience for it. But I think a lot of times people are easy, or they want to grab at what's shiny, or they want to grab at what's hot or trending or what's working.
Celebrities.
Or celebrities, they want to get a documentary about a celebrity, yes. But I think if you actually start inward and you think, what are my struggles? What do I need to hear? What's something that would inspire me? And then you can go out and find that and try and have that universality to it, because again, everything is, we're all human. We all go through the same things. We all have different backgrounds and things like that, but we all have the same struggle. So what struggle do you actually have, and how can you translate that? And I think that's where you really get to the heart of it, because your heart as a storyteller is in it as well.
I think a really good example of this is a short doc that was nominated for an Oscar last year, Nanai and Waipo. It's on Disney Plus and Hulu. So simple, beautiful story about two grandmothers of this one filmmaker. And it was filmed during COVID. And it's just like a beautiful portrait about getting older and what that means. But anyways, I think that's a great example if you guys want to watch that.
I have one thing too. So when I was at Chapman, it was a while back, the head of our department, his name is Bill Croyer, who was a classically trained Disney guy from the old days, and he was very exacting about story. Like, that to him more important than the art, the visuals, anything, was the story. And what you said really reminded me of this, because the way you said it was so lovely and so like introspective, where he would be like, no, make me care. Like, if you can't make me care, then nobody's going to care. Like, you have to make people care about what you're trying to tell them, because everybody has a story, and we have many stories, and we have more heartfelt stories, and we have really surface level stories. But in the end, like, what makes somebody stop and listen to your story, that is the heart of good storytelling, is to make people care.
I'm curious to hear from you as well, Michael.
Well, I'll say for any screenwriters out there, 100% of the times, 10 times out of 10 or however many it was that I would go take a meeting for a script, the creative executive would say, why did you write this? Every single time. So you have to have the story for why you wrote the story that they're talking about. So I think that's important. So knowing why you're doing something and then carrying that through. Now, if you can convey that onto the screen, that's the trick. And sometimes that's out of your hands, because I guarantee you, every movie or TV show that we've watched that we thought sucked, those people had the best of intentions. They were really trying to make something good, and stuff gets in the way sometimes.
On Zara's point, and also Leah's too, that there's the development phase where we're contemplating the story, and then there's the executional phase. And when we get to executional phase, now we're really making our case for this is why you care. So we're putting a lot of attention on shots and scenes and what kind of cameras and lenses and why and when this is going to happen. And so we're really, and we're trying to execute at the highest level through the process. So from production to locations to then post-production decisions, right? And color correction and sound and music. So all these things, every little detail in the filmmaking process is that aspect of elevating every piece of it so that people will care more and more and more the more that you fine tune that really good story.
Sorry for the sun in your eyes.
Problem.
You got anything about this, Caleb, or are you ready to move on? Okay, I actually had a quick tidbit about that because I think we're talking a lot about like original ideas and, you know, the big picture of movie making. But even when you're telling a story for a corporate company, right, it's super easy for like corporate videos to seem boring. But we really believe, especially for the documentary stuff, it's no such thing as a boring story, and it's the filmmaker's fault if you didn't capture it, right? And it's all about being curious. If you're curious, genuinely, I think you're going to find the heart of the story. Sweet. Next question. So what role do you think storytelling plays in shaping public awareness and action around social and environmental issues? And I think, Richard, maybe you're well positioned to answer this first.
I think what's amazing I've learned through filmmaking is that you can see the change that film can make. You can, for example, I did groundbreaking work in getting people on surfboards who were paralyzed. And we started a foundation called They Will Surf Again. And there have been a number of films that have been made around this inspirational storytelling of people that you thought couldn't do something and now can, and that are actually teaching people who are able-bodied how inspirational it can be to do something that before was thought impossible. So I've seen through my work and that particular film that changed paradigms. This was long before you're seeing now a rise in the Paralympics, and you're seeing a lot of challenge athletes on television. So because we decided to go and help people do this thing, and then we created story around it, it inspired people. And it also opened the media's eyes up to how inspiring challenge athletes can be. And also through this work, we helped the Olympics, surfing become an Olympic sport, because the Olympics, to accept surfing as an Olympic sport, there needs to be a Paralympics aspect to that sport, right? So it's really interesting that when you jump off on storytelling that seeks to make change, that you can actually be part of change and witness it and see what the power of film can do. And similarly with a film I did called 12 Miles North, where we documented the first African-American surfer during racially segregated times, the late 1940s, the story of Nick Gabaldon. His story had never been told. It's like a Jackie Robinson story in the sport of surfing. The sport would have lost this story if we hadn't told the story in the film 12 Miles North. And now you see, because we made that film, a National Historic Site made at the beach where Nick Gabaldon learned to surf in LA, an annual Nick Gabaldon Day, commemorating him, kids from the inner city being bused to the beach to learn how to surf, underserved kids who could never have a chance previously to surf. And you also see as well a Black surfing movement and Black filmmakers inspired by that. And now 10 years later, sitting on the stage, showing the film and having those filmmakers on stage with me, telling me how they were inspired by this, that we told this story. So these are really important things, and we can really make an impact. And I think that contemplating our nation's history with race is something we haven't done enough of. And I was very challenged by the Black community, the fact that I was the person coming in to tell that story. So I could go on and on and on, but this is a really powerful medium film and to make social change. And now the stakes around climate change and social justice issues, never before has there been a more important time for filmmakers and storytellers to step up, tell stories that matter, to accelerate change, to make people realize the stakes of what's out there, right? Because it's still kind of, the issues are still very existential to us. The stakes are very high, and that we as filmmakers have the power, and you're seeing more and more happening. You know, a friend of mine's running head of sustainability and social justice at the Academy Awards. Now you see her having panels with showing different films and bringing experts in to talk about, you know, these issues, right? And how we as storytellers in Hollywood and documentarians can really be part of this movement.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thanks for sharing that, Richard. Zara, I'm curious from the video game perspective, what you think about this, how storytelling, right, is creating social change or impact.
I think that video games are really an incredible medium because you can tell stories in a lot of different ways and you can have the people be part of them. And I found this, oh, sorry, the sun is like.
No,
directly
you're
on my
good. You don't have to look at it this way if you don't want to.
Yeah, I had a small experience that I thought was really profound. So our studio made a game last year that was an anti-Western. So the purpose of it was to tell a Western story, but focusing on the perspectives of people that were there, but have not historically been centered. And most of our characters, our speaking roles were women. But the game was for men 25 to 40, a virtual reality shooter. And so the players that played it and the ones that I got to watch, and I watched every playthrough that ever got put online, were these men. They'd come in, they'd guns blazing, like ready to go. And they played through the story and they changed. They start off not listening to the characters, like when do I go get to shoot stuff? And as they go, they start looking them in the eye, they start remembering their names and remembering the plot points and saying, oh, I gotta go help her, I gotta go make sure that she's okay. And it was profound. I never been part of anything like that before, and that's just our game. I imagine it's happening like 100 times over, all over the place.
Do you think when people are having that experience in the game, that it's transforming their potential behavior outside of the game?
I can only hope that that's true because I literally see the difference in how they perceive the story and the characters at the beginning and at the end. And if they do have that very marked difference in the game, I can only imagine it impacts them in their lives.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm curious, Leah or Michael, if you want to take us up, or Caleb.
Can you remind us of the question?
Yeah, absolutely. So what role do you think storytelling plays in shaping public awareness and action around social and environmental issues?
Yeah, I'll take this on sort of a micro level, if you will. So I think there's the art of documentary and storytelling, honestly, in general, is more accessible than ever. I think that everyone has a camera on their phone right now, and everyone is able to tell their own stories. People that are from, different backgrounds, different countries that maybe never would have access to tell their story, have that opportunity. And so I think that it's absolutely essential to convince any group of people to tell stories around it. Everything is very nuanced. Issues, climate change or whatever, like everything, there's so many layers to it. And in order to permeate someone's brain, you kind of have to go there. You kind of have to go through those nuances. And even in the real world type of situations, we made a 6-minute documentary, for example, for a nonprofit here in San Diego. And they screened it to about 100 people. And they were able to raise $167,000 between the 100 people that were there. And I think that just shows that, a small crew with even very minimal gear can really tell a nuanced story to create change in their own community. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a big blockbuster type of movie. You don't have to roll out the red carpet. I think that even with your phone and, maybe you'll take some lessons on AI from Caleb, like anyone can really tell their story and create change in their own community. So I think it's exciting and essential.
Anyone can cook. Caleb, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think what we've seen at Curious Refuge, like for example, we have a woman that went through our program. Her name's Amina. She's awesome. She was in the first month that we did our training. She had to quit film school because her dad was sick and she just had to go home, and like that's just her life situation. And because of AI technology, she's been able to be at home, take care of her dad, and start telling her own stories. And they're awesome. And she's doing an amazing job. And in just 1 year, so she started this journey in June of last year, she started putting out film concepts. Her films premiered out here in Hollywood at the Sony lot. Was written about in the LA Times. She has her work in a museum in the Museum of Pop Culture and Contemporary Art in Estonia, right next to Banksy and Andy Warhol. And she was a speaker at Cannes in May. So in less than a year, She went from filmmaker who was sidelined because of a family situation to speaking on a panel at one of the most important film festivals in the world because of technology empowering undertold and underrepresented voices. And I think that type of power is incredible and it's very exciting. And I don't think gatekeepers like that, but I think it's awesome.
I'm sorry to all the Chapman students, but I guess you should drop out and join his course.
I want to say too about the power of putting cameras in people's hands, because actually I saw a film that I was gonna say is like really one of my top films too. I wanted to add it too because it's so visually beautiful, but it also is a story of it's a purpose-driven story. It's about empowering people that really didn't have an opportunity before to have a voice. And it's called Born into Brothels. And these children who are born in prostitution in India were given cameras. And the documentary filmmaker was able to capture these orphans, like creating imagery that was so beautiful. It was like, it became the film. And then this photography exhibit like traveled the world, and it's mind blowing. So that's just an example of, and also we as documentary filmmakers seeking stories. So we have an idea, like this filmmaker decided, I want to go and I want to put my lens on the prostitution in India and the children that are born in these brothels. But this became the story because what we're doing as documentary filmmakers is we're uncovering the story, right? That's the magic of it. Like we come up with an idea, we go there, but then once the film starts happening and the film, we're continually seeking that story. But another good example is a film called The Territory, which is about the Brazilian indigenous people. Yeah, and it was so powerful in that the filmmakers got embedded in this territory where these indigenous people they had not been touched by humanity, right, by the Western civilization, and that they were living in this preserve of forest. And there were tree poachers that came in, and the government was turning a blind eye, and they were going onto this land and poaching trees. And and there was one woman involved in trying to help the indigenous people keep the poachers out, but the government wouldn't believe, or the world did not believe this was happening until they gave cameras to the indigenous people, and they started documenting. And then the filmmakers got that footage out. And I think that's just a great example of the power of like technology and getting cameras in people's hands and really having an idea, like, if there's a great story there, we want to put the camera there and really observe and see what happens.
I also think The Territory is a really good example of real truth, right? Every film's going to have its niche and like why it's being made. And so it's that form of truth, but that film gives both sides context. And I thought that was really powerful, actually.
Yeah, both the mission of the farmers, that there was a mission that farmers believed who were coming in and poaching these trees believed that they had a God-given right to do so.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Right. No, it was
Yeah.
really fascinating to
Yeah.
hear the farmers talk about why they were doing it. And they, of course, didn't really know what was going on the other side.
Yeah.
But okay, I'd love to move on to the next question so we can get to a Q&A, actually. So what opportunities or challenges do you think that current film students will face in future dominated by streaming and digital content? So what new opportunities or challenges do you think current film students will face in a future dominated by streaming and digital content?
Can I go?
Go.
Figure out how to make money off of streaming, like for these people that run the studios, because they don't know. They don't know how to make, I'm not kidding, they know how to make money in the 80s and the 90s, which was cable and ad sales. That's all they know. That's what they've gone back to. That's why the business has constricted as much as it has. So, and you'll notice it when you're watching the Olympics and you happen to be watching it on Peacock and you see the same ad run multiple times, not versions of the same exact ad, they couldn't sell that space. Or when you see a blank spot or just like a placeholder and it says your program will be back in a few minutes, they couldn't sell that space. Why not? Somebody would have paid for it. People have products to sell. Why not? Why was television start off being free? Because of ads. So we got to figure that part out. We got to make streaming be profitable for these companies so that they will go back to paying artists like you guys to be making films. So I think that's it. And it's a big opportunity because they don't know. Somebody here, one of you guys, somebody younger than them is going to know and figure this out.
I just wanted to piggyback real quick. I know I'm just the moderator, but I actually think he's so right here because we've been doing documentary full time last 5.5 years, and we're like, oh wow, we need to learn how to actually do business and be profitable. So if you're starting a creative business, focus on that. Of course, your craft needs to be important, but you can hire people that are ahead of you in their craft. So anyways, the business side is so important. So be innovative in the business side. I love that. Who else would like to touch on this?
Never before has it taken more of an entrepreneur to be a filmmaker, or a creative person, and so it takes a lot of drive and belief. And really, you're creating it yourself. So I think that it's all about getting out there and doing it now. Right now, it's like go make it. Whatever you do, make the film and get it out there and like literally put it up on social yourself. I think that, there's this whole interesting dynamic happening with really successful content creators on the social channels also being limited by that success, in that they don't understand story and how to develop things across different platforms and channels, or how to tell a long format story. So I think that that's a trap. I think that young people can get into, to think that if they can just sort of make it on Instagram or make it on YouTube, that's going to be a path. I mean, not saying that isn't a path, but I mean, ultimately to really go far, it feels to me right now in entertainment that we are going to have to figure out some of these issues on how to redo how we distribute and kind of make films and distribute films, right? Because there's a big disconnect between the old way, which was television, cinema, streaming, Apple, Amazon. It's changing. All of it's changing, right? So there's that, and there was the old traditional models, and then there's kind of this the new content creators on social platforms. So what's going to be the new method for delivering all types of content to the audiences? So
Right. Something that's been attractive to me is like, you could post something on YouTube, you have an audience, you can make AdSense off of your great film.
yeah,
So that's obviously a great entrepreneurial way. What
And
do you
if
guys
you're
think?
lucky, you can make a quarter one day.
That's what I was saying. 60%. It's gotta be the right topic.
I get a lot of views, and I like literally the money from that YouTube that I make can't even afford to pay for our editor.
Can you give context? How many views are you getting?
We
that?
get a few 100,000 views a month, and it's probably about $2,000. So you can do the math there. Like, it's
Yeah.
not great.
Hey, that's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing. It's definitely better than nothing, but you're not going to have a very nice place in Los Angeles on $2,000 a month. So I think that the big thing, that it's kind of the research that came out recently, YouTube has more watch hours on television than Netflix. Like, people are turning to YouTube before they're turning to streaming providers to watch content in their living room on the big screen. And that is a trend that's only been going up in recent years. And the problem is, for students that are a part of the any film school, is the fact that you've been trained to pitch a film, to create a film in a traditional model that is dwindling, in an industry that is hurting, that can't find ways to monetize. And I think that what you're going to have to do is learn how to grow an audience. You're going to have to learn how to have feedback with that audience, create things that they want to see. And if your projects are good, if they're resonating with the mass audiences, I think the decision makers at the larger studios will come find you. And to your point on, creators that put something out on social media and it gets picked up, some of the people in my life that have the most opportunities are the ones that are just creating constantly on social media. And then the people who are traditionally the gatekeepers, or the industry people that sit there and listen to 100 pitches a day, they find them through social media because they're just scrolling their phone at the end of the day. They're not watching Netflix, and like they're like, oh, that person, I should talk to them, and they'll have more movie deals than they can imagine. And so just create films. Like, if you're defining yourself as a filmmaker, go make films. If you're not making films, you aren't a filmmaker, you're a film consumer. So like, go make a film, get it out there and make lots of them, get all the bad ones out of the way, and then opportunities will arise if you're a good filmmaker.
I'll also add as well that the film festival, and then I'm going to hand it over, but the film festival platform is so good right now during these times, because its ability to get our films played around the country and the world, to get accolades, to get write-ups, to build an audience, right? And what we've been doing with our feature films, and like, we've been holding on to them, right? We're not like we're not putting them out onto the internet as fast now, because we used to do a certain like process of, okay, we're going to go here, then we're going to put it on the internet then. But like, now it's so uncertain. We're holding back. Like, this time, for the first time ever, we held our film back, and we just kept doing select cinemas and doing pop-up screenings and doing more film festivals and building our audience online and building demand. So then when we finally got to our PBS launch, there was a really rabid audience wanting to see it. But we created a lot of story around our film online, but we didn't show our film online. So that's a really big piece right now, I think, too, is to not rush your project. If you have a bigger, more special project, hold on to it, right? Don't feel rushed to get it out, because I think you can build your audience that way, really homegrown like they used to. I mean, The Endless Summer is a good example. That Bruce Brown went around and went to high school auditoriums and played that film and narrated to it. And then it eventually, 4 years later, got to the big screen. So it's an exciting time in that sense, that there's a lot of opportunity. We just have to kind of figure out how to find it and work with it. Yeah.
Zara, do you got something?
Yeah, about challenges, but also hopefully things that will change.
I was going to say, hopefully opportunities. I also like to talk about opportunities.
Challenge and an opportunity. We live in the attention economy right now, and I think that there is somewhat of whenever we talk about film or entertainment, there's somewhat of a misalignment of like what is actually happening, which is you're competing with everything. Everything that can take somebody's attention. Humans only have 24 hours in a day, out of which they're only awake 16 hours out of it. Like Netflix has a presentation on this that you can go and Google on and see that they're competing with everything that you do, including sleep. And now Netflix has opened up. So first of all, they are a platform that kind of owns the marketplace of where films gets shown. And then on top of that, they are now expanding into a video game platform, because now they know that video games are competing with them for people's attention. So now they are getting into the video game business. And so the world that students are like graduating into is this world where it's kind of like a mad land grab for that, like the space and that marketplace for your attention. And hopefully that will change. Hopefully there will be some, good lawsuits out there that will stop this from happening. But until then, I think having an understanding that is like churning out more content isn't really going to do the trick for much longer. Like really you have to be strategic, more entrepreneurial than ever, to understand that you are vying for somebody's time that they could be spending on TikTok, on Instagram, on Netflix, on all these other places, with an army of UX designers that their sole job is to keep them on those platforms. So you have to think strategically.
This is a very good segue into our final question. Also, I think something that Michael is probably a really good example of actually is that there's not just like one way. You don't have to start a production company, right? Or start a company in order to, get your creative business started or your career started. I think there's so many streaming platforms, right? Or production studios where you can go work there and you can see the inside workings of a scaled company that is like the true version of what you aspire to. And that accelerates your learning curve, I think, by so much. You can ask the executives really personal questions to work there for a couple of years, and then you are a way more valuable asset to then start your company. And this is coming from the person that's YouTube University and never worked at a company. So I think it would be very beneficial. But Michael, I'll get this last question for you. So for students who aspire to be filmmakers or content creators, what entrepreneurial skills do you think are going to be the most important for sustaining a career?
Well, I'll say for me, I started out very traditionally. Like I learned filmmaking in a very traditional way. I wasn't even thinking of getting into this, but I wrote a script and I met somebody at UCLA Extension that was a director coming out of USC. And so he was like, hey, let's make a pitch trailer for the script. So we did that. That was like 15 years ago. And it got me meetings, it got me an agent, it did well. That was generative AI, it was just generative people making something that, because what I discovered is as a writer is that people hate to read. So if you show them a short video, that really entices them to want to actually really spend time with you in your project. So that same guy who shot my pitch pilot ended up over the years growing in his business. And then he got the job at Warner Brothers. And then he started to contract me as a writer, as a consulting producer. So it's all about relationships. And like every single professor I had at UCLA Extension, because they were all working writers, would start the class by saying, you don't need to go to college or school to do this. You can just read scripts and watch movies, right? And sure, but you're meeting people that are going to be your colleagues, that are going to be the ones that hire you, that bring you on to jobs in the future. So I think it is all the skills that you're learning in college right now, like teamwork. Filmmaking is a team project.
Team sport.
Team sport, exactly. So I think that's really the thing, is learn how to be a good teammate. Even if you're the star, learn how to raise all your other teammates up.
I love that. Got to be a good leader. Leah, I'm curious to hear from you. Wow, got an applause for that one.
Was. I was thinking deeply about this. I think we're talking about the skills that we need to have,
Yeah,
basically.
so what are the most important skills if you're trying to be a filmmaker or a content creator to sustain a career?
Yes. Okay. So one, I think you have to be really bold. I think that you have to dream really big and you have to actually do it. So, and by doing it, you also, the second part of what I'm saying is, I'd really encourage you to document whatever you're trying to do. So if you're trying to make your first documentary, or if you're trying to, sell a script or something, tell a story about how that's what you're trying to do. Put it on TikTok, make it interesting, make someone care about your personal journey, because I find that the things that grab my attention in the attention economy of everything is when it's one person that has a crazy idea that just decided to go for it. And you involve all the, sticky parts, and you also have to be vulnerable. I think you have to be very bold, but you also have to be very vulnerable, because there's so much content out there. People can kind of sniff the BS. Like you can tell if you're not authentic. So you need to be bold, and you also need to be vulnerable, and you also need to document your journey.
Absolutely. I'm curious to hear as well from the AI master here.
I think to be successful, just to echo your point, like, you have to just be a good person that other people want to work with. That gets lost. Like, whenever I'm thinking, when I have a big project and I'm looking to hire people, like, I want to hire people that I enjoy being around and that I feel creatively inspired by, and not people that are a drag on the creative process, and people that are enthusiastic and can get enthusiastic about projects in times when there's not a lot to get enthusiastic about, So I think it's just like, be a good person that other people want to be around, like, be willing to both learn and bring ideas to the table. And of course, like with the AI revolution and you just have to be flexible. As soon as you think you know exactly how something works or what the process is like, it might change. So just like be a lifelong learner and be a good person, which, like, that's been true forever, right?
The lifelong learner. Absolutely. I was going to be a teacher once. That's what you're supposed to do.
We just had this conversation today. I mean, there are a lot of people in our industry that they're big egos, right? So we have really talented DPs we work with, and we can put up with them for a little while, right? But on the long haul, my advice is think long term, and think you got to stick with it. You got to stay with it. You got to follow through. You got to be a finisher, and you got to find a mentor. So someone you trust who does good work. You need to know the difference between what you like and what you don't like, what's good, what isn't good, why it worked, why is it successful. And then your mentor, you need to feel that way about their work and get feedback. Continue to get feedback, and surround yourself and make teams with people you trust their work, you trust their feedback, because it's a team sport, and the best idea wins in a great collaboration. So I don't want the credit for coming up with the idea as a director. I want the best idea to win. And that takes a lot of confidence. And I think when I first started directing, it was like the era of the diva director, where they would throw tantrums and they would like take their names off the credits like that. It became too competitive. Our industry is so competitive now. So the nice guy is going to win. The person that's going to stick with it, who keeps trying, falls down, gets back up. Like the challenges, the difficulties, they make us better. And that idea that failed is going to be the next great idea. So I really think, that stick with it, have a long-term plan, continue to do it, and believe in yourself, and find a mentor, and you're going to do great. And also be a really nice person, and have a great team, and do stuff, passion projects too. You could have a job over here, work on your passion project over here, and then soon you're going to find your passion projects. That is your day job, and you find a way to meld those.
You've inspired two thoughts here real quick. One, I heard a nice quote by Michael B. Jordan, which was, the moment you're feeling like you're ready to give up, hold on, because something good's about to happen. And then the second thought is, be really good at LinkedIn. Seriously, no matter if you're like a solo entrepreneur, you're wanting to work at a big company, get really good at LinkedIn, you'll always have a job. I'm curious, Zara, though,
Go ahead. Last thing I'll say on that too, is that we get so busy in our work that we forget to Michael's point, get out and see people and mix with people. We're in a dark room a lot of the time. So get out there. That's the thing. You got to have a balanced approach to your work. So part of it is getting out and seeing people, having network groups and things like that.
So you guys are ahead, you're here.
Exactly. Thanks for coming again.
Zara,
So I had a professor at Chapman. His name was Harry Effland. He died a couple of years ago. He was an agent. He was Martin Scorsese's agent. I never actually took a class with him. I just sat in on every class that he ever had at Dodge. And he taught me so much. And so my actionable things that I think students can do today, because I wrote it down on this little piece of paper when I was a senior and I still have it, which is learn the business. Learn the business. Do not go out there assuming that making a great movie is all it takes, because then you can be the nicest person ever, and they're just going to trample right all over you. So learn the business, read the trades, whatever the trades are in your industry, know what's going on, know where the money is moving, who's moving it, like be proactive, not reactive, like understand that when you go into a room, when you're networking and talking to people, like have things to say that they're interested in hearing, because that will be the difference between whether they want you to be on their project or not, is what they know, that you know what's going on. All of those things, and be so passionate about whatever the area is that you want to work in. If it's movies, know movies, watch movies, read scripts, like don't go in there kind of assuming that who is the director of the day when I was Christopher Nolan when I was in school. And like anytime anybody said that their favorite director was Christopher Nolan, I knew to just ignore them because they don't know movies. So know what you're talking about. It's not that hard, and it will make a huge difference in your career.
wow, I think that was a beautiful last answer. Can we get a round of applause for all of our panelists? Okay. Cynthia, can I do 10 minutes of a Q&A? Awesome. Okay, we're gonna open up the floor now. Any burning questions from the crowd? And we're gonna throw a microphone to you. Who's your question for?
Hi. Oh my gosh, what in the world? I'm talking into a foam cube. Hi, guys. I'm Bobby Rocket. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I'm super inspired by all the conversation happening up here. I can't get over this. But I have a bunch of questions, but I'll just ask one for time's sake. But so perfectionism is something that a lot of artists deal with because we're like super self-critical sometimes, but also like, detail oriented. How do you tell when you need to keep working and polishing something versus when it's time to let go, release, to allow the next idea to come in? Because I forget who said it, but you have to get the bad ones out of the way first, so you kind of, it's like, okay, it's not perfect, but I'm gonna move along. I suppose that could be for any of you, whoever's.
A short answer is 80% is good enough. But
Okay.
overall, I totally relate to what you're saying, and we are putting that out into the world, and we're continuing to polish and polish and polish. So there is a point, though. I think too, if you have your group that you trust on feedback too, you can use other people's feedback to know when that feedback, when that input starts getting down to those little minutia where you can't really tell the difference. But ultimately, you're way better than ultimately it needs to be for it to be great. So 80%.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in right quick before the next question. Could we have a round of applause for Bobby? Because
Nice pillow toss. Yeah.
by asking the first question, you just won Leatherby merch. And a little promo moment, if everybody could just turn around. We actually now do have Leatherby merch, and you can scan the QR code and buy one for yourself.
Give it up for Leatherby.
Any other questions?
Hello, I'm Cameron, and I'm also an animation major at Chapman, so that was really cool to hear. I hope this is not too general of a question, but I was wondering, like, I would love to hear more about your, like, start as a student here, and then just like, how did you get from there to being an entrepreneur, and maybe the skills that you learned along the way?
Oh my God, that was so random. That's the other thing. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So I came into Chapman. This is such a topical thing too, because when I came to Chapman, I wanted to be a 2D animator. I wanted to make like the classic Disney animation. And the first class I took at Chapman, they were like, so this is 3D animation. This is Maya. And I said, oh my God, I am not in the right place. And then I went to a film class and they were like, so like, here's the history of, and I was like, oh my God, why did they let me in? I don't know what's going on. And talking to the professors at the time, they were like, look, this is where the industry is going. Like, they're not making 2D anymore. Like, this is what you need to know. And it was really great because there were a lot of kids who came in who didn't have those skills at the time. And I know all of them now work in really, really high level, like 3D in Unreal Engine. Like, they came in knowing nothing. So that just goes to show that you can start anywhere, and everybody starts somewhere. So that was, and honestly, loved my time at Chapman. That's why I'm still here. And for the entrepreneurial piece, what's really funny is this place, I think it opened in 2015, which was the year that most of my friends and my husband, they all graduated. And so they were like, hey, we're looking for companies who want to start here. So they said, sure, we'll start a company. So actually, I'd say this place might be even the reason that I'm sitting here right now.
All right, we'll try to get through as many questions as possible.
Hi, my name is Celeste, and this is kind of like my second year into film business. And I never really envisioned myself as a filmmaker, but I've had this idea for a documentary for probably the last 12 years. But my big question is, I've read books, I've on financing and, you know, where to show the film, but now the landscape has changed quite a bit. So my question is, where do all the documentaries go? I mean, is there like a platform for it? And is there something I can't find other than Vimeo? And, you know, it's such a, and I don't know the names of the titles for a lot of these, and Netflix is too many. And I get confused. So where do all the good documentaries go?
Great question.
Richard, let's tag team this. Richard, you go first.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say this is good.
Well, I'll tell you my strategy as of now, because we have 6 different documentaries in different stages that I eventually want to get somewhere, that in front of an audience. I think the idea, at least, again, I'm going off of our current strategy, which is you basically need to partner up with another production company or another agent or person that has basically done a deal before. That's what I keep hearing from my mentors, and everything is like, oh, you want to sell to Netflix or you want to sell to Hulu? Who has done it before? Go be friends with them. Go watch the credits. Go watch the documentaries that you feel like are maybe similar to your idea, and hit up every single person that you see. All the people in the front that say, oh, presented by blah, blah, blah. I've never heard this media company before. Look them up, give them a call. So that's basically our strategy, but I will also plug Doc Plus. This is a free, I don't know if anyone has ever been on there before, but it is a platform that is basically plugged into like Tubi and Freevee and a bunch of other platforms that are already inside of your TV that you can pitch to them and they'll acquire it, or they're acquiring a lot of finished films basically. So Doc Plus, I have not yet gotten my film on there yet, but it is on my to-do list. So Doc Plus, they're owned by a company called XTR. So I would highly recommend looking them up. And I think that they're going to be here to stay. They seem to be profitable based on a documentary conference I went to.
So it seems to be a 2-part question. Really, are you also talking about how to develop a film as well? Okay. So on the side of like where we find documentaries, like my documentaries can be found on iTunes or Amazon. So those are good places to go, you know, for documentaries. But also, if you're really excited about documentaries, I would say learn about film festivals. The best film festivals have the best Best Doc NYC, for example, is a great festival for documentaries. There's like the world's best documentary film festivals. There's a list for that. Movie Maker Magazine has it. So for me, I'm looking for documentaries that are coming through the best festivals. So those festivals are also, they're highly selective on who they're choosing. They're also making the films available for that window that the festival's screening them. So you can watch them online. That's how you would find the best, the most cutting edge, the latest documentaries. I would recommend that. But this is a really good question in that the future is so hazy. We have no idea where our documentaries are going to go next. That's what I want to know. I want something better than what's out there, right? Netflix used to be a bit bigger opportunity for us. Now it isn't, based on like what kind of films that they're developing now. They're not buying things that we have finished. ESPN films used to be a way to go for certain projects. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens. But I'd say like on the filmmakers front, develop a project, a short film length, develop a feature length project. When you're developing that project, know your channels that you're seeking to where you want to put that documentary. With short film, it's going to be different than a feature. And there's certain options. Once we have a finished feature film, there's a lot of different options that we can look at for distribution, whether that's a large distribution company, an independent distribution company, whether that's selling to networks and channels around the world, getting an agent to represent our film. So I think to Rez's point, it's like know the business, right? Know the different channels, understand the film festival platform and those opportunities, understand the broadcast networks internationally, understand domestic rights versus international rights, understand who the independent distributors are. So, but it's a changing landscape. So I wish I had a better answer for where our documentary is going to go.
I think those are both really, really great answers. I have a quick tidbit for you. I think be willing to share the wealth right away. It's really easy to be like, this is my project, my baby, and like you want to preserve it and keep all the rights, share it. Someone else is going to help you sell it. And then there's also other festivals, right? Doc NYC is big. Like there's a lot of big festivals, but there's also a lot of small festivals that are niche, looking for specific topics. So find the festival that you can squeak into, and you can start to get out there a little bit.
There's actually a bunch of different purposes. So if you're in that activism and cause-related filmmaking, there's a lot of great film. You can find the film festival for your passion basically these days. It's really cool. I mean, Film Freeway is a great. They have every film festival on there, and you guys, as viewers or students of it, you can learn, and that's where you can put your film. And
if you want to learn stuff, there's a podcast I heard about called Talk Doc to Me. Gives really good insight about stuff. Yeah. That is our podcast. We have time for one final question. Who has the cube? You get to pick. Throw it to whoever you want. Oh, you're talking. Throw it to yourself.
A question. How does
maybe flip it around? Oh, you got it. My bad.
Yeah. So if you see companies like OpenAI, they launched another company called Sora. So basically, you can give instruction, you can make a move like a short documentary. My question is, how does those documentaries which are created by AI compete with traditional like Pixar's? And also keeping that in mind that this year's 2 Nobel Prize went to AI. Actually,
I think Caleb, maybe you got some insight here.
Can I just say one thing though?
Michael.
If the person didn't take the time to make it, why should I take the time to watch it? You know what I mean? Like when you guys make something, I know you put your time and care into it. I know it didn't take you 5 minutes and you didn't write a prompt. So that's what's another layer of why I want to see what's created. And also that program you mentioned, look at the hands. They haven't figured out hands yet. Okay, so that's awesome.
Just to clarify on the question is how does someone using a tool like Sora compete with Pixar? Is that more or less?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the future, where does this industry is going? Because there will be always people who will use AI to make a movie, like somebody wants to make a movie, but then there will be like Pixar's, and they would like to have another kind of experience. So how does these two words live in future? What's your thought?
Yeah. Okay. So how do AI tools integrate with pipelines that might be similar to that of Pixar and create stories that are as meaningful? Is that fair enough?
The question is more on future, like where does future look like? Because, you'll always have people who are going to use Sora, pay $20 per month, they'll make a documentary in like 10 minutes.
Gotcha.
And then, Pixar's who has.
Yes, yes.
So-
I think there's a big fear among people that, oh no, these AI tools they can watch movies, they can make clips, they can make audio, all the pieces are there. So if we're just going to sit around, type in a prompt and watch a film about a group of people that were at an event at a college and then aliens landed and chaos ensued, right? I don't think that that's going to be very interesting to the point of we're humans and we want to connect with human stories. And I think the best example of that is Suno and Udio. Do you guys know these tools? You like type in a prompt and it gives you a song and you can be like, write a song about like my dog named Chester going to a birthday party. And it'll make a song that's like kind of okay about my dog. And it's really fun the first time you do it. And the second time you do it, you're like, okay, this is fine. I have no reason to use those tools again, outside of maybe if I need something specific for a film I'm actually working on. But I think the same will be true for us as humans. I think we want to tell stories because we want to feel connection to other people. And I think without a level of human interaction, and that could be through someone curating an AI model in a certain direction or programming the language in which the characters are talking with one another. I think that could create some sort of interest, especially in the video game world. But in terms of Pixar, and it's really funny, their model of we're going to literally storyboard and create animatics for the entirety of this film before we like start rendering a single frame is one of the exact workflows that AI filmmakers use. And that's a very human experience. And so, my hope is, and really the vision and what we've seen so far is that the stories that resonate with people the most and the ones that are most impactful that use technology are the ones where the technology is not at the forefront. Ed Catmull says the biggest praise he received for Toy Story is someone saying, I didn't even realize that it was animated halfway through the movie. And I think that's awesome. And I think the same should be true for AI.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay, well, I think Caleb and Michael need to have a really good debate at some point in the future. But let's give another round of applause for all of our panelists here.